nor am I.
I'm not seeing my YouTube channel pop up. So let's see. Oh, maybe we're not live.
Okay.
Maybe we'll be live. Maybe we'll be live in about 10 seconds here.
Right on.
Oh gosh. Okay. Okay. Yes. Now we
Maybe we'll be live.
are live. Okay. So welcome everybody to our Tuesday afternoon live stream. With me today is Angie Atkinson. So welcome, Angie.
Thank you. Always happy to be here.
I'm glad to have you. This is a live stream that we normally do around 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays. We're starting a little bit later today, and we also alternate channels. So next week we'll be over on Angie's channel, and you can find her and everything she's doing across the internet over on Angie Atkinson on YouTube, on her website, everywhere. Angie Atkinson. So look her up because she's great.
Thank you.
So welcome everybody that's popping on here. Angie and I were talking before we went live about what we would start off with, and we were thinking about talking about self-care. So Angie, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
Okay.
So today I got my first professional massage. I have had someone practice on me who was going to school to be a massage therapist, but today I went and had the full experience for the first time ever. And this was an act of self-care. I've been feeling a little off kilter lately, and wow, it was totally, totally worth it. Really a good experience for me. So it got me thinking about self-care. And, it's so easy for us, especially us specifically, those of us who have been, who are empaths, who have been in codependent relationships, all of that. It has, it's really easy for us to just forget about ourselves, especially when we're taking care of children or elderly parents or just, life in general, a significant other, anything, a job. It's really easy for us to kind of put ourselves on the back burner. And I do that a lot. I hate to admit it, but I do. And so I guess I've just kind of reopened my my self-care practice, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so something that, and then I even had a nice salad for lunch and everything. I was like really healthy all day. I feel really good about it. So my point is, I think it's really important for us, especially when we don't think we need it or when we don't think we have time for it, to take moments to get to, to do a little self-care. And, there was a time that I couldn't afford to go get a professional massage, but there are different ways you can do it. I mean, there are even like those places now in some areas. What are they called, Dana? I don't know what the names of them are, but they're like, they're like massage chains, and like you
Oh,
can go get, what I'm talking about?
like
Um,
Massage Envy or places like that.
yes. And you can
Uh-huh.
like go in there for, I don't know, $30 or something and get like a neck massage or whatever. I mean, if you can afford to do that, even it can be really beneficial to you, or just even, do something nice for yourself, like give yourself an at-home pedicure or a facial. Like you were saying, Dana, you had some kind of little facial thing. I don't want to tell all your business, but I I have little at-home these little gold mask things you put on. Do you know what I'm talking about? They stick to your skin, and those are another way I do self-care to just kind of help my skin feel a little bit more hydrated, and little things. And it's little things like that, and it can be more serious than that. Maybe you need to go, to therapy, or talk to a coach, or just go hang out with your girlfriends or guy friends one night and have a couple drinks or whatever it is. But just anything that kind of nourishes your soul. And I'm not saying you have to drink to have your soul nourished. Don't misunderstand me. I'm just saying coffee, even, or tea. Just go out and do something good for yourself, whatever that is, something just for yourself, and that's hard to do. And part of the reason that, and this just occurred to me, Dana, I'm sorry to keep talking,
No.
um, but there was a member in my group recently who, and I don't want to tell all his business, but he was saying, I have this dream that I have this opportunity to go and do this thing that I want to do, but these people in my life are saying I shouldn't do it because I have a child and my child can't go with me. But this other person said they would watch my child and I feel comfortable with that, but now I feel guilty for even thinking about going, and it's a whole big thing. And even when we have children, we have to do things for ourselves, including sometimes let them stay with grandma for a weekend so we can follow our dreams. So I guess it's all some form of self-care in different ways. What are your thoughts, Dana?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, self-care. Somebody was saying here in the chat, Jen was saying that when she lived in the shelter, more than half the women had no idea what self-care even was.
Mhm.
And I would agree with this. And in men too. I mean, this just is a topic that's not readily discussed. And
That's right.
I think we all kind of maybe have an idea of what people mean when they say self-care, but putting it into practice can really be a struggle. And one of the things that I have really made it a point to do lately is to schedule about a 3 hour brick of time on Sunday
Mm.
as my self-care time,
Yep.
and to put that in my day timer and to make an appointment with myself and value that appointment just like I would with anybody else. Like, it's not something that I'm just going to put in my calendar and then be like, well, if I have time or if nothing else happens, or no, like it's a priority. And unless something really major comes up, I really want to hold to it. And I have, it's doing something new. So it's going to be, there's a learning curve to it. There's been a couple times where I have had to cancel that time.
Yep.
But every time I do it, I feel, I notice that I feel different. And I really enjoy making those 3 hours. uh,
Yeah.
it's great. And so what I do during those 3 hours is I've been doing my nails, even if it just means filing, just a little mini manicure and a little mini pedicure. I've been also making time to just let people that are significant in my life know that I care. So,
Mm.
which makes me happy. So I bought a bunch of little art supplies, like colored. I bought all these little kind of like bullet journal-esque markers that are
Love it.
just these different colored
Hmm.
things. And then I bought some stationery, and I bought, like those wax seals that they used to put on the back of
Yes.
envelopes. Okay. Like, I've always loved seeing that in movies. And so I finally
Me too.
bought some,
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
it's so fun. And so I love making these little letters every weekend for
That's
people and then
awesome.
mailing them off. That's been wonderful. And then, so this is something that I want to do every Sunday, but I also want to make time every day to
Mm.
think about, okay, what do I need to do as far as self-care? Because one of the challenges I've had, and I think a lot of people struggle with when they first start getting into self-care, is there's we doing self-care is more than just doing nice things for ourselves.
Hmm.
So it's developing that emotional awareness of what we're needing in that moment.
Yeah.
So it might be time to relax, but it might also be time to be like, okay, I need to to cultivate some friendships and go out with friends for lunch or for coffee. Or maybe I do need to speak with a therapist or a life coach, or,
Mm.
kind of what am I struggling with right now? And what would my future self thank me for?
Yeah.
I guess can be a good way to look at that.
Yeah. And sometimes it can be as small as like, I'm not drinking enough water. I need to make sure I get enough water in my body
Yep.
every day. Little things. It doesn't have to be like I said, I know the massage sounds, I mean, to me, it's a big, huge deal because I haven't done things like that in the past. But it's little things. It's truly drinking water. It's eating, something that makes your body feel good and that also tastes good, maybe, or,
Mhm.
it's taking vitamins or whatever it is that you need to do. I mean, you're so right. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We've got some great people coming, great comments coming in the chat. John Matthews says, today sounds like a good day to schedule a self care appointment. Yes, indeed, my friend.
Yep.
Yes.
I'll tell you too, one of the other um, things that I have made it a point just in the past, I don't know, a couple years, um, that I never thought of self-care, but it really has just been an absolute game changer, is to have like an emergency fund.
Oh, yeah.
So there's $1,000 that I keep in my savings account at all times now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have more in there now, but like I always keep that much in there. And it's amazing how much my anxiety decreased after that.
Oh, yeah.
And the decisions that I make are so much more um, just solid, because I'm not in that attitude of like, I don't have to take jobs that I don't like, or I don't feel stuck, or
Yeah.
it's not this fear. If a light goes on in my car, it's not this overwhelming, debilitating anxiety of, oh, great, now what?
So
Um,
true.
it's
Yep.
knowing, okay, I can handle certain things. And so it took me quite a while to really learn the value of just setting aside money for emergencies. And Christmas is not an emergency. Birthdays are not. Do you know what I mean? Like those are things
Yep.
that we
You
know they
know are
happen at
coming.
the same time every year. So like
Yep.
planning for those, but then putting aside money. And then if we spend the money to really do everything we can to start shoveling funds to get it built back up to $1,000 or whatever, and then grow it to 3 months worth of expenses, 6 months worth of expenses, a year's worth of expenses. Because the more we have in reserve, the easier we're going to sleep
Hmm.
because we're not so stuck.
All true. Yeah. I have this. Joe said a couple of things that are pretty good here. She said, my ex-partner used to buy everything more expensive for him and his family, but not for me unless it was his idea. I couldn't buy for myself without a guilt trip. And I experienced that similar thing, where I was not, growing up even, it was so stupid, but like, this is dumb. I'm going to tell you anyway. The chicken thing. Okay. So it was like, how do you, I was not allowed to have the white meat part of the chicken because that was for the people who were better than me. It's so stupid.
Mm.
But it really bothered me. and, and so it's little things like, and I was always, secondhand this, hand me down that, whatever. And not always. I mean, but even if there were new things, it was like, well, I wanted, sorry, my cats are making noise over there. I wanted like Jordache jeans because I'm old and that's what was in when I was in second or third grade.
Uh-huh.
And I got Calvin Klein's instead. Which, like, whatever, those are still designer, but they weren't the ones I wanted, and it's so stupid. But those were things that really, as a kid, it really affected me. Today I don't really care about brands as much. But Joe says she's better at self-care now, and she saves up and makes sure she tries to put money aside just for her, even if it's a small amount. And that's exactly what I think we have to do. It's not just about money, don't misunderstand me. And
Mhm.
there are times, like I said, sometimes it's just drinking water, or eating better or whatever.
Yeah.
But or like you're doing your, I need to do my nails right now. But yeah, doing our nails is a little bit of self-care, or um whatever. Art can be self-care, like we said. But I think that's exactly what it comes down to, is whatever you can do just for yourself is where it all kind of begins. and
Oh,
and then,
it's
yeah.
yeah, it's huge. Even giving yourself an extra 15 to 20 minutes in the morning.
Mm. Yes.
I tell you, like for decades, I was always, hitting snooze, waking up late. I'd launch out of bed,
Mhm.
behind the ball. And then it was just this franticness that would happen in the morning. I was stressed out. I was anxious. Uh, and then there's just that ripple effect to that,
Yes.
where it stays with you all day long. And I just really struggled with time management. I still do, but I'm significantly better than I was even last year. And allowing myself that extra time, and actually spending time to watch videos on time management and how to become more effectively organized has
Mhm.
been a really solid use of time and self-care. So
Yeah.
it's really figuring out like kind of what you need for you. That's what do you need to do in order to care for yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. And I know I've talked about this before, but I'm about to talk about it again if I can find it here. Um, my bullet journal, which is very not cute at the moment, but it it saves my life every day. where I where I write down all the things, my ideas, all the things. I used to have a giant stack of notebooks, um, that were all over the place with all of my ideas and thoughts and plans and daily things. And girl, it was crazy. Um, but I found this bullet journal idea, and the way that my mind works, as I think maybe you're in the same boat. I don't know, but I'm always like, my head's always going 50 million miles an hour with all these ideas and thoughts. And so being able to kind of contain them into one book, it and using this very simple system that kind of just works with the way my head works, is good, because what I've done in the past is I have tried to use planners. I fail. Or like I said, I have all the notebooks everywhere, and then I just forget everything. And what's funny is if you go through all those notebooks, you'll find different versions of the same idea written down over the course of 3 years. And you will,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Now I index them all and I can go back and look at them. And instead of actually just writing the whole idea down again, I'll be able to actually take action on them now. So it's self-care in a way, you know? Yeah.
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 Yeah. I I like it. Yeah, I think getting yourself organized. I something we should talk more about this
Yeah.
because it's something I know I think we're both very similar in that
Hmm.
with the way our brains work and the kind of the challenges with getting organized and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, the
It's a real
struggle is
thing.
real. Yeah.
Yes. Indeed. Oh, here Jen has a great idea. She says, have you tried 20 in the morning? 20 minutes exercise, 20 minutes meditation, and 20 minutes in your journal. She said, I get up at 5 a.m. just to pull it off, but it helps. I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great way to get yourself a little self-care. And, for the most part, it's pretty free. So,
Yeah.
with what we have on YouTube, I mean, I've been doing another way I've been doing self-care is instead of watching TV when I go to bed, which I've done forever, I've been listening to meditations and sometimes just binaural beats or whatever, just the
Hmm.
soothing stuff. And boy, it really makes for a more peaceful night. So that's cool too. Um, and again, that's just all on YouTube. It's not anything. I mean, I guess I pay $10 a month or whatever for YouTube, but that's just because I don't like ads.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, it's great. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's a good point. I like the 20 minutes too because it's doable.
doable. Exactly the word I was thinking. Yeah, yeah, I like it.
Um, jump into another question here, completely off topic, but
That's all right.
on topic for the live stream.
Right.
Bonnie asks, she says, I have a question. The narcissist in my life said he has scruples, but no conscience. What
Mm.
does that mean? I thought they were the same thing.
I think scruples are ethics. And I think he thinks that because he doesn't steal from Walmart or whatever, and he doesn't, maybe hit you, that he's got scruples. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's mental gymnastics on his end. It,
Right.
scruples, I think you could say like kind of morals and values, like what Angie was saying, but
Yeah.
conscience means, the ability to discern right from wrong. So it's kind of like, well, you can't really, it's going to
Yeah.
be challenging to have one without the other. I wouldn't even, that's the crazy making part of it all. And
It,
if you've ever watched the show, this reminds me of this. If you've ever watched the Netflix show Mind Hunters, which is about serial killers and actual interviews. It's
awesome.
very, you would really like it, Angie, if you haven't seen it.
I
Um,
have it in my plan to watch File.
yeah, it's great. There was one interview well, actually, a couple interviews that they did where they were finding this discrepancy, um, kind of this word salad crazy making with a lot of the interviews that they were doing. And they're like, how, for example, the first, I forget, I think it was the first serial killer they interviewed, one of them had kidnapped a girl and he'd already murdered several women and she was crying in the car and was saying, well, her dad had cancer.
Mm.
And she was just so upset and the guy let her go.
Wow.
And when the interviewers asked him about it, and he's like, man, basically like, I'm not a monster.
I
Her dad,
mean,
her dad had cancer. So that's a big deal. That was where this is what we talk about. Like it's constant shifting moral ground based on wherever they are in the moment. It's
yeah,
not concrete, which is concerning because you never know where they are. So,
right.
and just because that was where his moral line was that day doesn't mean that it would be the same 3 hours later or the next day.
Yeah. And I think, and I could be wrong, but I think for Bonnie, I think he may have also meant like he kind of just outed himself as a narcissist because he's saying to me, when you're saying I have no conscience, that means I don't care how people feel or what happens to
Mm-hmm.
people, which is I have no empathy. And then in that case, he's basically admitting to his narcissism, in my opinion. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Or at least, I
It,
mean, even if a person says I have no conscience, like that's a huge red flag.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that
Yes.
alone right there is sort of like, okay, this person's telling you,
Mhm.
I don't, like Angie's saying, I don't have empathy. I don't care.
Mhm.
I don't discern right from wrong. It's basically whatever I want in the moment.
Right.
And
It doesn't keep me up at
that's
night.
right. It doesn't,
No.
I don't lose any sleep over it. So
Right.
watch out
Right.
because that's dangerous. Those people are dangerous. And
Mhm.
um, I would, the different problematic people in my life, I've had very similar weird things that hypocrisy, it just doesn't line up. You know,
Right.
like they might act in all kinds of immoral ways, but in their mind, they're they're still within their moral. It's like Chris Watts, you know, he made a comment about somebody had asked him when he had put his two children into those oil tanks, if there was any chance that they were still alive. And he had said, no, basically, oh, come on, give me a break. I would never do something like that.
Like, really? You would
But
kill their
but you
children.
would kill them, right? So it's this is people stick around with these people because we're trying to figure it out. Well, what am I dealing with? If somebody's telling you I have no conscience, you've already seen a pattern of hurtful behavior from them. You would be best off to expect the unexpected. So do not expect them to honor loyalty, monogamy,
Right.
financial, whatever they say. Like it's a free for all.
Yeah.
Expect for them to do whatever they want to do with money, with their body, with your home. Um, because normal, decent people really struggle to wrap their mind around this, and they keep getting knocked off center because they're like, "Well, I cannot believe this person, stole money or put me on their, I have debt in my name, or they put our dog down, or they
Right.
did this, or they did that, or they did this." And it's like, this is the result of a person who has no conscience, who is instant gratification minded, and who
Yeah.
does whatever they want to do.
Mhm. 100%. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
G Ken Flick says Chris Watts scares me as he's a perfect example of the haywire thinking that is a narc gas. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's
Yep.
legit. Um, yeah.
It's
Looks like,
wild.
yeah.
The stuff that they can, justify to themselves. It's just, I mean, it's just jaw dropping.
It really,
Are you listening to the words that are coming out of your mouth? Because this does not make sense to not
oh,
only just me, to any reasonable person. What you're saying does not make sense. So how on earth does it make sense to you?
right. It does not.
It does
It
not.
does not. Yeah. And it shocks me often. And the same thing, when I think about people, even in my own life, who have been like angry at me for making a choice to protect myself, for example, where they would act like the victim, like when I left my ex-husband, he was the victim, poor him. And she took my kid from me, she ran away, she did all these things, and really all I was doing was protecting me and the kid from the bad things. you know but instead of admitting any responsibility at all, he twisted it. It just smear campaigned it, gaslighted me, the whole thing. It didn't matter. I stayed away, but it's an easy um, it's an easy trap to fall into, and I see narcissists doing it to my clients all the time, where they get away and then they rush, they rush back. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And they they get away, and then they come back, and they hoover them, they suck them back in or whatever. And it's that kind of, well, how dare you leave me? You left me all alone. I don't even know how to pay the bills or cook some dinner, or whatever. And they're adults and everything. It's pretty ridiculous. Yeah. Anyway,
Hmm.
yeah. Bonnie says, "Yep, narcs are always the victims." Exactly. Yep. Um, this is an interesting question. Forward looking says, if you could draw a pyramid of narc supply items, what would be in the top of the triangle for most? What object or situation is most desirable, yielding the best reliable and secure supply? Well, I think that's clearly, um, they, most of the time it's a partner or significant other, but it can also be a child. I think those two are the primaries. You also see certain. I've seen especially wealthy narcissists use their staff, their maid or their whatever driver, gardener as supply as well. So I think it just anyone they have control over, really. What do you think, Dana?
Yeah, I think it's whatever feeds their ego. So at the top of that pyramid is
Yep.
the ego, right?
Yep.
It's an unhealthy ego, and
Mhm.
they're constantly looking for ways to make themselves feel better, to make themselves feel whole.
Yep.
So yeah, forward looking is saying money. Yeah, it's money, it's sex, it's social status, it's
Hmm.
prestige. It could be um, complete outright lies where they're saying that they have, generally it's some sort of prestige. Oh, that they have a PhD, or that they were, the successful entrepreneur, or that they were in the military, or that they've done these, they embellish a lot.
Yep.
um
I've seen them use sob stories even to suck people in. That's what my ex-husband did. Poor me,
yeah,
my mother died and this happened and that happened and yeah,
yeah, it
it's
could be
always
their
something.
body, like their physique.
Yes.
It's just whatever they're, the
Whatever they
ego.
have that they
Yeah,
can manipulate you with. Yeah.
right,
So,
exactly, whatever they have that they can manipulate with.
hmm.
So
Yep.
somebody had also asked, in Dandelion, yeah, she said, it can be the thrill of power and control too, right?
Mhm.
Yes, especially for the ones that are, I think, more on the malicious and intentional and sadistic
Yeah.
side of the spectrum. So it's whatever makes them feel, I was saying whatever makes them feel whole, or say that's not accurate. It's whatever makes them feel smug and superior,
Yes.
because there is no sense of
Superior.
wholeness. So let me
Yes.
retract what I was saying earlier. It's more about that sense of superiority. That's the problem, because with we all do things to, we all have ego needs. Like there's nothing
Sure.
wrong with that. But if we have healthy ego needs, we're getting those needs met in a way where um, it's more of like a communal need. Like all of our, my wants and needs can be met, but it's not at the expense of other people. It
Right.
tends to be, if anything, it tends to be more like in collaboration with, there's like this team orientedness of it.
Hmm.
Um, Whereas with people with a really fragile or broken ego, they just consume and destroy. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just this continual needing to feel better than other people. So like a healthy ego, it's Pia Melody, I think, would call it, there's not this power over or power under dynamic. It's a sense of mutuality.
Yeah.
Whereas with them, it's always that power over, it's always that need to feel superior,
Yeah.
even if it's not true.
Yeah.
So they might be like super big into, physical fitness, and they might have this amazing body. So it might actually be something real, or they might actually really be a successful entrepreneur or very wealthy or what have you. But it also could just be like a flat out lie where they're embellishing things that they've done just to make themselves superior in that moment.
Yep. And as you were talking, and you basically said it in another way, but I was thinking, it's all like a healthy situation would be some give, some take,
Mhm.
each of you, and the unhealthy situation is all take. The narcissist takes everything and you give everything, and there you are. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's, at the end of the day with narcissism, it's, you have to just remember it's all about them all of the time.
Mhm.
Their degree of self orientation is so problematic that they are unable to be there for other people.
Mhm.
So it's a black hole. It will only ever be all about them all of the time. And there's a spectrum of that, to the degree of kind of the lack of emotional capacity that a person has, I guess. But I think that's just so important for people to realize. Again, normal and decent people, it's really hard for us to wrap our mind around how a person could be so selfish. And it just, the normal dynamic with interacting with people is just, it's completely different when you're interacting with a narcissist or anybody like a sociopath or anybody that's on that side of the spectrum, because you can give and give and give, you can be nice, and they will take what they can from you and then throw you away.
Yeah. Yep.
There is no loyalty, there is no, but look at what I've done for you. There is no earning their love or their respect or their loyalty or their monogamy or any of that. It's just
And
all about them all the time.
right. In fact, if you say, "But look what I've done for you," what I've seen is that they will throw that back in your, "Oh, yeah, it's all about what you've, oh, look at you. It's all about you, what you've done. Da, 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 da," you
Yeah.
know. Why are you bringing that up now? You know, it's all a bunch of BS, but that's, yeah, I've seen that same thing. It's not
Yes.
funny. It just amuses me how similar they all are across the spectrum. It
It,
doesn't matter if they're
yeah.
living in a trailer park or a mansion. You know, they're all the same. It's crazy.
Yep.
Um,
Any act of kindness or charitableness or anything that you've ever done for them, they consider that to be the bare minimum.
yeah.
Like
Oh,
that's just expected,
yeah.
right? So
And that's not
everything,
even enough.
and it's still not enough. And
Right.
any little thing that you do that's potentially hurtful, they will hold that against you forever. And because they twist all of their actions, any little act of kindness that
Mhm.
they give always has strings attached.
Yeah,
You're
that's
just
right.
not dealing with a um, a person who has that sense of mutuality and empathy and reciprocity.
No. I used to get in trouble for the way I said hello when I answered the phone with my ex.
Wow.
It would be a 2-day long argument about how I answered the phone. So I started to, I had to I got to the point where I still do it a little bit where I had to stop and be like, "Okay, I'm gonna do this right. Hello." You know, it had to be just so, or else it was wrong.
Mm,
It was so stupid. But it
wow.
was really, yeah, it was a thing. Craziness. Yeah, GH says, "Yes, you can buy supply." Yeah, you sure can. They call that, well, anyway, I won't tell you what they call that, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Milk Dad asks, can two narcissists be in a relationship together?
I mean, I have seen it. I think it probably happens more often than you think. There is also such a thing as like an inverted narcissist who almost can't exist without another narcissist. Have you heard of this? I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah. So, I mean, it's, yeah, I think it can happen. I don't think it always lasts very long unless they're both wrapped up in the same illusion together. Um, like where you'll see, you know, they maybe their social group sees them as a certain type of standard or something, or they, you know, I've seen it. It's not always pretty, but I've seen it. What about you, Dana?
Yeah, I think too. Oh, this is something that always just really gets me is we need more words in language to describe certain concepts. And so, like when we say, can two narcissists be in a relationship together? Like, well, how are we defining a relationship?
Valid point.
Right? So, like, can they be in some sort of dynamic together? Absolutely. Can they be in um, some sort of fulfilling, intimate, uh, sharing like what I would consider to be actual, like a relationship where there's relating going on? No,
Right. That's a
no,
good
because
point.
they, right? Because they don't have that capacity. So
Right.
this is what trips people up because they're like, oh man, my ex is getting married and are they going to be happy together? And are they going to have this great relationship? And it's like this person has had a long-standing pattern of showing that they have no capacity to effectively relate to another person. A change in partners isn't going to fix that.
No, the cycle continues.
The
It just
cycle
starts over with the new
continues.
partner. Yeah.
Right,
And
right.
that's why we get confused because we see them doing the love bombing thing with the new partner and they're, oh, everything's perfect. We're soulmates. This is the person I was supposed to meet all along. And we forget, that like 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, 10 minutes ago, whatever, they were saying the same things to us. You know what I mean? And acting the same way about us. So yeah, I, I see it. I
Yeah,
see
I
it.
mean, they can stay married. It's really, I just kind of look at it like it's like the snake eating its tail, you know?
Mm,
I mean, can you have and everybody gets their ego needs met differently. So yeah, you can have two people that would be narcissist or narcissistic or even sociopathic,
mhm.
and one is really after social status and the other one is after money.
Right.
So they're each getting their own needs met in a weird way, but there's nothing even on healthy, it, and these relationships tend to not end well. because you have two people with an outrageous sense of entitlement. A lot of times you get, murder, suicide, um, just all kinds of chaos comes from
Yeah.
these types of dynamics. Or they just consume and destroy everyone around them, and Bonnie and Clyde type of
Mhm.
thing.
I
They
was yeah, I was thinking natural born killers.
Yeah.
Totally. Mickey and Mallory, same thing. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's yeah. And I think, and this is dumb, maybe, but I think I should stop saying things are dumb today. Um, but I think like with the Mickey and Mallory dynamic, that what you had was a very damaged couple of people. The Mallory of it all being the one who, the Juliette Lewis character, um, clearly came out of a really broken home. Her father was, molesting her and abusing her and all this stuff. And so when you look at that, and then you look at, she was looking for love and she was very angry. And so he gave her some sense of belonging, or, couplehood or whatever. And then, you know, and then when he didn't, she psychoed up or whatever. But anyway, yeah, that's an interesting dynamic to think about. Probably should move on.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Forward looking says, I think that with hold on, let me move this. With two narcissists, one is more dominant over the other. And yeah, that's
Typical.
just, yeah, because it's a spectrum, right? So whoever has like the stronger personality, but keep in mind though that the one that with the stronger personality is probably more overt.
Hmm.
The one with that kind of lets them take the lead is probably living a double life of some sort, and they're still getting their needs met. They're just doing it in a more passive
Yeah.
way, under the radar kind of way. So
Hmm.
it's not fulfilling in any way. It's two people that are just using each other.
Yeah.
So I mean, please don't think that, oh, if I could be more of a narcissist, then I could somehow make this relationship work. Or
No.
they've met this perfect other person for them, and just because they're still together that it's working. The dysfunction, it just gets thicker and thicker, and it becomes mud, which then eventually becomes quicksand.
And inevitably, it's not going to work. It cannot it cannot work. Because even if, like Dana said, even if they stay together, they're not happy and they're abusing each other essentially on some level. And and don't feel sorry for them because they're doing it mutually.
Yeah.
In different ways. Like, like Dana said, one of them might be sneaking around to get their needs met while the other one's just perfectly out there about it. And either way, it's toxic and it's
Yeah.
not something anyone should be involved with, really.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Here's another question from Life as a Journey. It says, can parents who are both empaths raise a child to grow up to be a narcissist? And I think we actually had the exact opposite question earlier
Hmm.
about, can two parents who are narcissists raise a child to grow up to become an empath?
I think it's okay. Yes, I think it's possible. And let me tell you why I think it's possible. I don't think it's intentional, but I think what you have is, especially if those two empaths came out of abusive homes or homes where they were neglected in some way, emotionally or otherwise, they might tend to be too permissive and too. I have to be really careful with this with my kids because I tend to want to let them have everything they ask me for, and I tend to want to let them off the hook with their chores and be cool about stuff, except for grades. I'm not cool about grades. I'm totally, on that. But everything, I've never hit them. I've never hardly, if I even slightly raise my voice, they act like I beat them. You know what I'm saying? They're very, so I, I do, I'm not saying my kids are narcissists, but I'm saying that, yes, I can see how two parents who are empathic could feasibly raise a narcissist because they might be too concerned with that child's needs and they might forget to teach empathy. That's something that I haven't done. I've not forgotten to teach empathy. But when a child is growing up in a home where they're the center of everything, and nobody questions them, nobody challenges them, they're just, perfect in the parents' eyes. It's a fine balance, I guess, is my point. That overprivileged child could definitely become a narcissist, without intention from the empath parents. So it's a matter of finding balance, I think, finding balance between wanting to give your children everything and needing them to become responsible adults. And also, the biggest thing is teaching empathy. So I think as long as you're careful to teach a child empathy, then yeah, you can you can save them from becoming a narcissist. But yeah, I do think it's possible, unfortunately. What are your thoughts, Dana?
Yeah, I think it's, nature nurture thing. I mean, you can have two kids that grow up in a home where there's a lot of abuse occurring, and
Hmm.
one child grows up and becomes an abuser, and the other one grows up and uh, has a happy, healthy, well-adjusted relationship and would never dream of yelling or cussing at or hitting their significant other. And if you were to ask either one of them why they are the way they are, they would both tell you it's because they grew up in a house with abuse.
Yeah, that's true. That's a valid point.
So
Yep.
so much of it's just these individual. I mean, that's the $1 million question, right? Like, why do people go left instead of right? And there's a lot of different factors at work there. But as far as can the question that I'm pretty sure was asked earlier about narcissists raising an empath, when that happens, that person becomes more, when we say empathic, what that really is, I would say 99.99% of the time is it's that child way of coping. So you have two incredibly selfish parents who are not emotionally available, and the child learns early on, in order to get my needs met, I need to figure out the emotional climate of this house. So I need to always know what kind of mood mom and dad are in order to kind of walk on eggshells and not to upset the apple cart, so to
Yep.
speak. So that's a skill that a lot of us have learned really early on, to just, you're always testing the emotional climate. Whereas children that grow up feeling safe and secure and who are able to be kids, who are able to be loud and self-oriented, because that's what kids are, when they're able to be kids, they don't have that ability.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
this is a really difficult skill to to teach somebody later on, because we've a lot of us have had decades of refining it. So we know, we walk into a room, we're like, okay, something's really tense. I think it's between this person and this person. This is what's going on. I think this other person over here might have a drinking problem. And other people are like, what are you talking about? And because you're used to picking up on body language, on signs, on behaviors, on all of the little micro expressions and things that are said and not said.
That's valid. And that's exactly, I used to think that I was like, I used to say, I don't know if I learned how to read people or if I could naturally do it, but all I knew for sure is that I got really good at it by watching the face of my mother,
Yeah.
because I needed to know when she was coming after me. I needed to know. I got really good at reading people, and I can read people really easily in the eyes a little bit, of course, but I really think your mouth is where it's at.
Mhm.
I think the way you hold your mouth, and I can read people better through their mouth than their eyes. The way you hold your mouth, people don't realize how they hold their mouth, but you can tell true intentions by looking at the mouth. You
Hmm.
really can, really. I mean, it's a weird thing, but maybe everybody is different. But there are certain things that we do with our mouths that are subconscious. That you can, obviously you can't control whether your eyes dilate or not for the most part, but you can kind of control. You can kind of make sure you look somebody in the eyes and you keep looking in the eyes. There are certain things that good liars will do. They'll make sure to hold your attention with their eyes, but look at their mouth. There's little things they do. Little, like their lips will tighten if they're coming after you. If they're going to do something to you, or if they're angry, or they if they're lying to you, sometimes they'll smile just a tiny bit. It's just enough, to. It's. I did a whole video on this a long time ago, but it's really a thing, and so, but everybody has different, some people can read better by, and I think we can all subconsciously read people by the way they stand, but it's always something. My point is, when you learn, and I think maybe I also learned to read through the mouth because um, the eye contact. One thing I know for sure is that the eye contact with someone who is abusive to you is um, it hurts a little bit. Like
Hmm.
it's, I don't know if that's making sense, but it kind of feels, you can feel them hating you, or
Yeah.
what, it's not the it's not the word I'm looking for, but that's what
Mhm.
it is. That feeling of I'm reviled by you, or I'm horrified or disgusted or whatever. That feeling, it's horrible. And it's something that you can't very easily just not have. You know what I mean? Like, you always carry it with you. And then as you go forward, you have to learn how to let go of it and learn how to realize, okay, I'm not horrible and disgusting. I'm not a total piece of crap or whatever it was that was shoved down your throat the whole time. So, yeah, that's really powerful. Anyway, sorry about that. Didn't mean to
Yeah,
keep
well,
going.
no, I think you're spot on with that. And one thing that trips a lot of people up, myself included, for a long time was, well, gee, if we're so good at reading people, how come we keep getting tripped up with them,
I've I've
right?
I've thought on that unless you have a thought. Go
Go
ahead.
go for it.
Okay. So I think it's because in the moment that they say the things that we need to hear, we want to hear, two things are happening. Number one, we want to hear that stuff and we want to believe it. But that's not the thing. It's number two. It's the fact that in the moment that they say, oh my gosh, you're totally my soulmate, I'm totally into you. I never met anybody like you, blah, 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 blah. This has never happened to me before. All the things they say, we we believe them because they believe themselves in that moment. In that moment, even though their emotions are very much like a little kid who got a toy that they've just wanted forever, and then they get bored with it next week and they lose it, or they want another toy. It's the same feeling that they get. They have very juvenile emotions, and in that sense, do you know what I mean? And so,
Hmm.
because right then they're excited and they're believing what they're saying, we can't detect that they're lying because they really are, on some level, telling the truth at that moment. That's my thought. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And I think back to what you're saying about we want to believe them too. When if a person's grown up in a home where you've had a parent or parents that have been really dysfunctional, and we, like you're saying, you've got to walk on eggshells to kind of always take the temperature of their mood to make sure that you're going to be okay. Uh, the result of that with children, and this is not a conscious thing that we're doing, we're hardwired. Children are hardwired to bond to their primary caregiver because we need to do that in order to stay alive. So there's this basic biological function that's going on. And the result of that, if our primary caregiver or caregivers are abusive or deeply dysfunctional,
Hmm.
because the child cannot comprehend that it's the caregiver who's problematic. Because if as a child, if you're 4, 5, 6 years old, even up to 16 years old, realize, oh my gosh, my parent is not able to care for me effectively, that can make a child go into emotional collapse because you realize my world is not safe. I have nobody there to take care of me. So psychologically, it's a defense mechanism of it's easier for me to think that my parent is okay and that I'm the problem. Because if I believe that I'm the problem, if I'm misinterpreting what they're saying, if I'm too sensitive, if I'm too emotional, if there's something that's wrong with me or my behavior, then I have the ability to change that. And so it allows us to continue to keep that sense of control and safety in our environment. That's a problem. And then we carry that through as adults. So when we're coming across, whether it's a coworker, a total stranger, a significant other, whoever it is that has this deeply problematic behavior, we're giving them the benefit of the doubt. And we're thinking, oh, we're just kind, compassionate people. That's part of it. But the bigger part of it is we've been used to doing this, to giving other problematic people the benefit of the doubt for so long, and groomed to think that if we ever have an issue with something, we must be the one with the issue. It can't possibly be somebody else. And
Right.
that's a big part of healing, is unlearning that behavior and realizing if something's a problem, it's okay for you to have a problem with it. And it's okay for you to set boundaries and get some distance.
That's right. Yep. And on that same token, I think for me, and maybe I was totally off with this, but I think for me, I would always look to myself first because of what you just said, but also because I knew that the other person wasn't going to be fixable. And so if
Exactly.
I couldn't change myself, then I couldn't fix the situation. And so that was also for me a big thing. I changed myself so many times. I tried to, but it didn't matter because it was like it wasn't me. I mean,
Right.
I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I have problems. I have issues. I'm, you know, I'm a little messy, but whatever it is. But but I don't go around hurting people. I care about how people feel, probably to my own detriment sometimes. Well, clearly, um, but I'm better with boundaries now, and I understand the value of that and why it matters and why So yeah, yeah,
And the reality is, even if you were perfect and could be exactly what they wanted you to be, they would
be
resent you for
enough.
that.
That's right, and there would be something else
There'd be
because
something.
yeah, yeah. Like I went through a thing just like that where here's this big issue that I have, and I totally changed this big issue, and I did everything I could to become this different sort of person more than once. And inevitably, once that issue was resolved, and this is the only issue we have in our whole relationship, and then that's what they would tell me, and I'd fix that issue, and then there would be some other issue. Always, you're right. It never ever is enough. Yeah. I have a good question from Corbin here, who
Okay.
says, "Should I out her to the new supply? She's told them I'm crazy and a madman, but I have recordings to prove that she's lying and using them. I have thoughts on this. Do you want to start?"
Sure. I would say detach and just what you have to realize, this new person's probably in that idealized stage, and they're being charmed, they're being wooed, and they're also
Yep.
being manipulated because they're only hearing this other person's side of things. So anything that you say is going to be spun around to be like, this person is, my ex won't let go, he's controlling, he's abusive, he's
Obsessed. Yeah.
manipulative, he's obsessed. I don't know how we got those recordings, man, those deep fakes are really getting good these days, like this is crazy, look at the effort he went into to create these fake recordings.
Yeah.
It's just going to make you look bad.
Yeah.
So there's, and even if the other person somehow does believe it, if they're emotionally invested, they'll figure it out on their own in their own time.
Yeah.
You saying anything is just, it's just going to backfire, and it could potentially have legal consequences, because she or he can say, oh, this person's, they're stalking me, they're harassing people around me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not worth it. And quite honestly, unless this new supply is like a relative of yours that you're really, really close to, like Dana said, there's just no chance that they'll believe you at this time, because of the love bombing, because of the everything is perfect and wonderful, and because they've already been told you're crazy, and so whatever you do, they'll see. I told you, Corbin was crazy. That's all they'll do,
Yeah.
and then they'll blow it off. Now, if you do, you know, give the recordings, there's a chance that maybe they'll question that. But like Dana said, these days you can fake anything, and people of all the people who would believe that BS, that you would fake such things, it would be that person, because why
Hmm.
else? Why wouldn't they? Oh, Corbin will do anything, go to any length to make my life terrible. He's obsessed with me. Blah blah. Exactly what Dana said. They're not in the right frame of mind to receive it. Now, there could become a time in the future when they might reach out to you and say, oh my gosh, I want to know about what happened to you because I think the same thing is happening to me. But that might not happen right away, and depending on how extreme this person was. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But other than that, I think the best thing you can do is gray rock and not even acknowledge it. If somebody comes to you and says, did you do all these things, or, did this person say that, or, did you do this to this person or say this to that person, or basically question whatever smear she's putting out, then you just say, no, I didn't do that. And if you knew me, then you would know that I didn't do that. And if they push it, step back mentally or emotionally or physically, all three even, 3 or 4 steps until it blows over, and then decide if that person really deserves to be part of your life or not. Personal opinion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Gray rock. And I would just would tell people, this relationship was really sick and really dysfunctional, and it's why I am no longer in it. I don't even want to hear anything about it.
Yeah.
And I
Don't
don't
give
want
it
to
any
hear,
energy. Yeah.
yeah, I can't have that
I agree.
in
It's
my
not
life.
even, and just remember that you don't have to tell them anything you don't want to tell them. So what was the crazy, you know what? I don't even want to talk about it. Let's move on, and do your best to not give that situation your energy unless you do want to talk about it, in which case make sure whoever you're talking to is trustworthy and not going back to report to that person.
I would say if they are even on the fence, if they're like, well, I'm kind of starting to see this person, or this, if they have any warm feelings whatsoever towards this person, you really go into it with the mindset of whatever you say is going to go back to that person.
Yep.
So just be very careful um,
Hmm.
with that. And yeah, I
Absolutely.
yeah,
I,
yeah,
yeah. That's why we have support groups, my friend.
yep.
Join one. Yeah, and we have Dana has Thrive After Abuse on Facebook. I have the Spanily on Facebook. There are plenty of, and I know both groups. I know mine is, and I think Dana's is also pretty moderated, so people are making
Mhm.
sure you're safe in the groups. Yeah, so just know that there are people out there who won't spill the beans on you if you need them. So
Yeah, we do our best, but I will say I would strongly encourage people, if you're going to join a support group, to join under a fake name, because people can and will follow you in.
yeah, that's true.
So we can only do our best. I tell our members, we try to prepare you. We can only do our best to protect you,
Right.
but you've really got to take action to protect yourself.
It's true.
So,
Yeah. And it is a good idea to make a separate account for that stuff.
yeah,
Um, but in our group, you need to reach out to somebody on our admin team and let them know, because new accounts are suspicious too.
yep,
And we need to make sure it's not a narcissist following in as, someone who's been abused. So
right.
you have to be super careful. Um, yeah. Okay. Moving right along.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
I got a question. I've got two questions here. One's from Shantae, who says, can a narcissist turn their spouse into a narcissist?
Well, I would say that not entirely, but I certainly have seen and have even experienced narcissistic fleas, where you kind of end up picking up behaviors and habits unintentionally, and sometimes you do that as a way to kind of go along with the narcissist and do what it is they want you to do or whatever. And sometimes you do it because it's just when you hang out with people, you pick up phrases and stuff from them, tones of voice, for example, things like that. But also the other side of that coin is that when you're talking about like pushing people out of your life, for example, which some people might consider it narcissistic if you don't call them back, or you don't respond to their email, or whatever. I found myself isolating horribly during my abusive time, while I was going through the abuse, especially, but even after, where I needed to just be alone, and I couldn't handle the problems of my friends and family members, and so I would just not talk to them. And that's not okay, but that's true. And so people would probably think I was toxic because I wouldn't respond to them when they tried to reach out to me. But really, it was like a self isolation that I needed to go through in order to survive those times. So because I felt so overwhelmed by the narcissist's like emotional demands on my time and energy. You know what I mean? um, Thoughts, Dana?
Yeah, I agree. When a when a person is in any type of, well, we all have coping mechanisms. I guess let me just start there. So, when we're in a dysfunctional environment, the way that we have to learn how to cope is going to be the coping the best we can. And the way we're going to cope in like a healthy, nourishing environment is going to be very different. So, for example, like in a healthy, nourishing environment, the way a lot of us cope is through self-care. It's through boundaries and standards and deal breakers and assertive communication. None of that is allowed with a deeply dysfunctional person. So we take on different coping methods. We tend to have either passive aggressive, or aggressive communication. We tend to have to lie
Mm,
in order to get our needs met and to get time to ourselves, because our partner can't, they're jealous or they're controlling, or what have you. Um, uh, there's so much defensiveness that's present, and the withholding and all of the ineffective, the manipulation and the lies and everything that's in that environment. You have to, a person kind of learns they have to fight fire with fire, or they have to walk on eggshells. Either way, it's learning a pattern of dysfunctional behavior. And so when that relationship ends, and like Angie was saying too, with trauma, like trauma is transformative. And so when a person's trying to heal from that, it's so all consuming. It's all you can think about. we don't have the emotional capacity to really be there for other people.
Right.
So it can make us feel like monsters of, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible friend, I'm a terrible sister, daughter, what have you, because I'm so all consumed with myself and my own pain at this point in my life. And I'm lashing out at people. I have no patience. I'm irritable. I'm rude. I'm all of these things that I never used to be before. A lot of those personality changes are coming from trauma and that emotional reactivity that's present with trauma. But getting involved in some trauma specific counseling or with a trauma specific life coach
Mhm.
can really help to for a person to find a new level of normal with that.
Yeah. And as you were talking, it occurred to me that one of the things that just right now occurred to me that
Mm,
one of the reasons that I may have shut down so completely was because up to that point in my life, I was always that person that everybody came to
mm,
for, I need somebody to talk to, or I need advice. I need to dump my problem on you. And, and I was always happy to be that person for people. But then it was too much. And I didn't have any safe outlet for it. Like I couldn't talk to anyone about it because I was really embarrassed that I was in that relationship and that things were going the way they were going,
yeah.
because that's what happens, because no, very few people, in my opinion, who are chosen and kept by narcissists are weaklings. I see a lot of very attractive, very intelligent, capable people stuck in these relationships. And I think the reason is that that they want somebody they can show off, but what they do is they ground that person into a pulp of a shell of their former self, and then here you are trying to just get by. I'm like totally all over the place, but you understand my point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think people that tend to be in abusive dynamics, they have an emotional strength and resiliency that an average person doesn't because they've had to carry so much for so long
Mhm.
and they've put up with so much for so long, not realizing that they were putting up with it,
Yeah.
right? They just thought this is just how it is or how it should be. And yeah, there's so much to healing that finding that middle ground and then really realizing, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I've been carrying kind of the weight of the world on my shoulders for so long. And how on earth did I do this? And
Mhm.
you start to really see how strong you were for so
Yeah.
long. And then realizing it's okay for other people, especially like you were saying, Angie, so many people, so many of us have been the one where we not only do we feel like we have the weight of the world on our shoulders, but we help others. Like, oh, I can still carry more.
Yeah.
I can carry them. I'm there for you. And then our load, you know, is 50 feet high, and we're still going along. We're like, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Let's
Mhm.
focus on you. I want to help you.
Yeah.
I want to be there for you because we just don't know how to be there for ourselves.
Right. And this is what this is all about, I think, is this. And okay, here we are, full circle, Dana.
Yep.
Because this is what it's all about. This is why we have to say self-care, really, right? Because we
Mhm.
we didn't, and we do that. We go, okay, well, I have a 50 million pound load on my back, but here, add 10 more pounds. It's fine. I got
Yep.
it. Don't worry about my problems. I got you. And that's who we are by nature. But when we're not getting any sort of support or nurturing from ourselves or anyone else in our lives, that's when we break, and that's how I broke in my
Yep.
case. Yeah.
And this is the part that I love. When other people are like, you are sadistic. What is your problem? Because when people find us, right, they have got to that point where it's the final stick on the pile that's broken their back, and they're like, oh my gosh, my back is broken.
Hmm.
And we kind of get to the place where we're far enough out with our own healing and our own understanding that we're like, okay, this is actually fantastic.
Yes,
And they're like, what are you talking about? My back is broken, my everything is ruined, I can't keep going as I was going before. And we're like, yes, exactly.
exactly.
Welcome. Welcome to the next chapter in your life,
Yeah.
because it takes that final straw for us to become broken, for us to admit things aren't working and we've got to start doing something different. And then it's learning a whole different way of being. But trying to get a person to change things, when they feel like they can still handle it, they can still carry that load, you're screaming into the wind. They're not going to hear you.
That's right.
And that's why it's just such a, like a beautiful, almost like sacred space when we get to that place where we just kind of cry uncle. We're like, okay, I'm broken. I'm done. I'm just going to sit down now. Now
Mhm.
what? And
Yeah.
yes, now we get to find you. Now we get to show you. It's about unlearning. It's not about becoming something different than you are. It's about unlearning everything that you're not and
Yes.
realizing that you matter and getting in tune with yourself. And I get goosebumps. I just love it so much because that's when you
That's the
step
beautiful
into your,
part.
it is, you step
Yes.
into yourself and it's just everything starts changing. So yeah.
Own it, baby. It's real. It's 100%. I agree with you. And
Yeah.
that is the good part. I get so excited when I see people. The part, when they break, it's hard. And yes, it sucks, but it is a beautiful thing because that is when I'm gonna something has to change. And unfortunately, for me, I'm a fixer. Let me fix it. I'll fix anything. That's who I am by nature. And so when I'm in a bad relationship, I'm going to fix that relationship. That's what I tell myself. And inevitably, that doesn't work unless the relationship is healthy and there are just some toxic elements to it.
Hmm.
And yeah, you're 100% with you.
Yeah.
And it's even more beautiful to watch people step into themselves. But it is at that moment, you're right, that it all begins. Because I always say I don't talk to brick walls, and I mean it. I will try to tell someone, like, even in real life, when I mean real life people I haven't met on the internet, um, I might try to say, hey, are you okay? Is it, I noticed this or that, and something going on, and if they're not ready to hear me, they'll, oh, everything's fine, everything's fine. And then I go, okay, because you can't fix what you can't see, and you can't, so I can't help you if you're not seeing that it's what you're dealing with is not resolvable, because it's
Yeah.
not you, it's them. Yeah, good points, good points. Love that, Dana. Powerful
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Thanks.
Right
Yeah,
on.
we get to do, we're very fortunate with what we get to
Yes.
do. And I think too, it's important for people that maybe that are new to our channels to understand that all of these lessons that we're talking about and where we both of us are in our lives, it's been a lot of conscious decisions.
Yes.
And we've had to really walk through hell
Yeah.
and learn a lot of these lessons the hard way. And that there's also nothing that's terribly, special or unique about us. I
That's right.
mean, don't get me wrong, I think you're absolutely
We're all
amazing, right?
right.
But
Totally.
but but we're human, and the the power that we've been able to squeeze out of our pain is not something that's unique to us. It's something that's available for every single person out there. It's
Absolutely.
just a matter of tapping into that.
It's true. There's,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely 100%. Every single person on this stream, anybody who even watches this video later, you have that power. There's no question. I there's just no question. If you want it, take it. It's yours.
Yep.
Truly. Yep.
I
And
agree.
and yeah, it's good.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, I think on that note, because we're getting over on time here.
Just realize that.
Oh, there's
Yeah.
so many good questions in the chat.
I know.
I
Oh,
have to go back and copy and paste them and touch on them next week.
yeah.
So yes, I guess speaking of that, you guys, next week, Angie, the plan, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time will be over on Angie's channel next week. So Angie Atkinson across the interwebs. And Angie, thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to chatting with you next week.
Always my pleasure. I'll see you then.
Okay. Take
All
care,
right.
guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Dana.
Bye.